I don't know what, but it's like 263 or something.
262.
262. So we're moving along, and it's interesting arguments that he keeps coming up with. It's incredible how he keeps coming up with sources to support his arguments. Oh yeah, sorry.
I'm not gonna drive.
You're gonna drive for me? What's the point? Just gonna get what again? Okay. Okay, good. So last week he's told us that he brought a whole bunch of proof texts that tshuva means even just one mitzvah done well, and it doesn't have to be everything else, and that's considered your tshuva, and it's a geula dika moment. Okay, it's enough for the geula to come, and now he's going to continue with this theme of how many mitzvahs do we actually need for the geula, and he's going to bring more proof text of just one, and he brings the arguments from the most interesting places, like where we see it. So he brings a midrash from a sefer called Mincha Shlucha. A midrash on the pasuk Mincha hi Shlucha la'Adoni. That's a pasuk from Yaakov Avinu, that before he met up with Esav, he sent him a gift. Now the midrashim say, what was the gift? And the answer is an eagle. And the question is, why did he send him an eagle? What's with the eagle? What's the symbolism behind the eagle? Vehi pele, and it's a wonder. Because Rivka Imenu was told, V'rav Yavod Seir, that the older one will serve the younger one, that Esav will be in the service of Yaakov. And that from the time that they were formed in the belly of Rivka Imenu, Esav was meant to be in the servant of Yaakov. And it's only Yitzchak's bracha to Esav that kind of made it conditional about how the older will serve the younger. Esav will serve Yaakov Avinu only in the case when Yaakov Avinu isn't behaving like Yaakov Avinu, like Yaakov, when Am Yisrael is not going to be following the Torah and mitzvahs. Okay, and it's based on the pasuk V'haya asher tarid ufarkan ulo me'atza v'recha, and it will pass when you will be distressed. Tarid means when you will go down, but what means to go down? The Rashi on this pasuk, I actually had to look it up. I love the word tarid, by the way, because tarid is taryag plus one. I didn't see anybody comment on that, but I didn't look in the Hasidic Sfarim where you would find something like that, and I'm excited to explore that possibility of like what that means. But in any case, tarid means Esav will be distressed. When Esav will be distressed, and then he can throw off the burden of Yaakov from his neck. He won't have to serve Yaakov. Well, what does it mean that when Esav will be distressed? So Rashi explains, he will be distressed over the bracha that Yaakov took from him, because he will feel like he's not, like, why take a bracha from me if Yaakov's not even behaving like Yaakov? And that's when the jealousy will awaken and the hatred will awaken. It's like built into the DNA of Esav to be sensitive to the fact when the Jews are behaving and when Jews are not behaving. And then they want to take control. So that's when tarid, okay, when you will feel the distress, you going down, when the distress concerning the brachas. Now, Rav Teichtel says, but what does it mean, tarid? This word, tarid is making you go down. When you will go down, the English translates it as distress, because that's the implication of the word. But because tarid, okay, he's asking a question. At which point is Yaakov going to be judged for not behaving like a Yaakov Avinu, like worthy of the bracha that he took from Esav? How many of the mitzvahs that Am Yisrael has to perform is enough for Esav to start behaving like an Esav against Yaakov? Because the question comes from the fact that, well, we have 613 mitzvahs to be Mekayim. And there's two ways of understanding this. אם דווקא כשיקיים יעקב כל התרי"ג מצווה ולא יחסר לו אפילו אחת מהן, אז לא נקרא כאשר תרי"ג. One way of understanding this is when Yaakov Avinu will do all of the Am Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu is Am Yisrael here. When Am Yisrael will, when Am Yisrael will do all of the 613 mitzvahs, and not even one will be missing from that count, then the word tarid about Esav, then there's no distress for Esav. He'll make peace with the Jews. It's okay. He won't. His jealousy and anger won't be awakened against Yaakov. But as soon as even one mitzvah will be missing, again he'll start thinking, Kasher tarid, hold on, why should I lose out on the brachas? He's not performing his end of the deal, that which is to do the 613 mitzvahs. And then Esav will be freed from the yoke of Yaakov upon him. And an opposite, now Esav can subjugate Yaakov Avinu. That's one way of understanding. Another way of understanding this is that that as long as Yaakov will do even one of the Taryag mitzvot, and the other ones he will not perform, that's enough for Esav to stay in his corner and not start up with Yaakov Avinu. Even if Yaakov, so we have two conflicting opinions. Does Yaakov Avinu have to do all 613 for Esav not to rear his ugly head against us? Or is it enough for Yaakov to do even just one mitzvah, and that's enough to keep Esav in his corner? It's only when Yaakov Avinu, when Am Yisrael performs absolutely zero mitzvahs, they have absolutely zero merits to them, that's when Esav can start making trouble for us.
How can Yaakov keep 613 mitzvot?
Im Lavan Garti. Garti is Taryag mitzvot shamarti. That's the tradition. That's the Rashi.
Yeah, but there weren't 613 mitzvot to do them because there wasn't no Damidah.
You're so cute. Yeah, the Alpha. Did you hear Ruthie's question? Ruthie says, "How could Yaakov have even performed? How can you expect that from Yaakov? That wasn't even Beis Hamikdash. Not only that, why go to the Beis Hamikdash? There wasn't in the Torah. Har Sinai didn't happen yet. Matan Torah didn't happen yet. Yeah. That's why he was able to marry two sisters until he got. Except that the patriarchs, our avot, kept the Torah, not even before it was given, because they intuited. Is that the word? Intuited the alignment, the spiritual alignment, the physical alignment with the spiritual through certain acts. Like Yaakov, Avram Avinu knew when Pesach was, etc. Yeah. Okay, they were doing it like Bnei Noach. They weren't obligated to it, but they were so spiritual attuned to what resonates with spirituality in the world that they just naturally knew to stay away from treif and things like that. Okay. And so Yaakov Avinu did the 613 mitzvot. And so now we have to understand. Yaakov Avinu is about to meet Esav. And he's telling him, Im Lavan Garti. I lived with Esav. I lived with Lavan. And Rashi teaches the word Taryag. Garti with Taryag. And I kept the 613 mitzvahs. V'darshu Chazal, and our rabbis explain in the Midrash, שתרי"ג מצוות שמרתי, לכאורה משמע מזה באופן האחד שצריך לקיים כל מצוות. Now, if you understand from this Midrash and this pasuk on Yaakov and living in Lavan's house and Yaakov telling Esav, by the way, I kept the 613 mitzvot, that we learn from that, Esav, you don't start up with me because I'm shalem, I'm complete, I kept all 613 mitzvahs, which is big trouble for us because it seems to imply that that's the only way that we can be saved from an Esav. If we follow the model of Yaakov Avinu that he kept the 613 mitzvot. You follow the argument? This is a problem But up until now, Rav Teichel said one mitzvah is enough. So how do we resolve this problem? Yaakov de'ag bishvil banav. Now, why did Yaakov Avinu keep all the 613 mitzvahs? And what's the implication for us? Yaakov Avinu de'ag bishvil banav v'shalach lo nesher. And Yaakov Avinu, despite the fact that he kept 613 mitzvahs, he also, aside from telling Esav that that's what he did, he also sent him a gift of an eagle. What's with the eagle? What's the symbolism? What's the symbol of the eagle? To tell Esav, don't take an example from me that I kept 613 mitzvahs. My children, my offspring in the future, for all generations, don't have to keep all 613 mitzvahs. And the proof of that, the symbol of that, the message to you, Esav, is I'm sending you an eagle. How is Esav supposed to understand from the eagle that as long as the Jews keep only one mitzvah, it's enough to keep away, and not 603 the way Yaakov Avinu did? Okay, that's the question that's going to be asked. So he sent him an eagle to announce to Esav that the Jews will not have to keep all 630 mitzvahs in order to not get to the point of kasher tarid, not to be distressed over the blessings taken. זה אינו, שמהנשר מוכח שכל זמן שיש לנו אפילו רק מצווה אחת, אין לנו בכלל kasher tarid, because it's from the eagle that it's proven that as long as the Jew do even one mitzvah, he is not in the category of being so distressed that he has to make trouble to try to get the bracha back from us. What's with the eagle? I had to look it up. Thank God he sources everything, and he's telling us to look up Chulin, Samech Aleph. Okay, so I looked up, I opened up Chulin because he doesn't explain it anymore. Well, maybe he does in English, but the Hebrew is kind of sketchy here. I had to fill it in. What's the whole sugya of the nesher? So this is what happens in Chulin. Say like this. It's a whole discussion there of impure birds and pure birds. Pure birds have 4 kosher signs to them. And there's a whole discussion and the Torah mentions 24 by name, by species, the 24 impure birds. It mentions 24. The question is, are there more than the 24 that are mentioned in Vayikra or not? In Sefer Vayikra, or not? And then there's a whole discussion on why are these mentioned and not others? If you walk along the way, if you're like somewhere and you're lost in some forest and you're hungry and a bird comes to you and you don't see and you don't really know if it's kosher or not because not all the signs are physically visible from the outside, and so can you assume it's kosher or not kosher? What if you see only one sign of the 4 signs, or only 2 signs of the 4, or 3 signs of the 4? What's the assumption there? And the assumption is if you see even one, the conclusion of the Gemara there is if you see only one of the signs, of the kosher signs, on a bird that's not mentioned in the Torah, then you can eat it. Go ahead and if you need to, go ahead and eat it. Except those 24 species, you got to keep away from them because they're telling you. And what are the 24 species? They're examples of species that have 1 or 2 or 3 of the 4 kosher signs. So not to be confused. But then the conclusion is if you see a bird that they're not one of the 24, then what do you do if you see a kosher sign on it? You have to check for all 4, but you can't really check all 4. You're not an expert. You're not a whatever in this halachic matter. And the conclusion is if you see only one sign, it's good enough. There's a whole discussion between the rabbis. But then the eagle is mentioned. The eagle is mentioned in this discussion. But the eagle has none of the signs. Because some non-kosher birds have 1 or more of the signs, but not all 4. But the eagle has absolutely zero kosher signs to it. So the question is, why are you bringing the eagle? It's for sure treif. It has absolutely no signs to it. So what's it doing in this discussion? And what it's doing in the discussion is that if you see a bird with no kosher signs, then it's not kosher. But if you see one kosher sign, it's enough. From the eagle, we get the halacha that if only one of the signs of kashrut is visible on the bird that you know that's not identified in the Torah as a tumah animal, then you can have it. Because because bringing the eagle into the discussion, here's a bird that's completely treif. It has no place in the discussion of birds that has only one or more. Why are you bringing the eagle? To make the point that if it's like the eagle, for sure don't take it. But if it's has only one, at least one, it's okay. I don't know if you followed that. Did I give you a headache? No? Maybe yes, a little bit? Okay. The point is, Yaakov Avinu sent Esav. He's telling him, I was in Lavan's house and I kept all 613 mitzvahs. But that doesn't mean, Esav, that you get to touch us if at some point we don't keep all the 613 mitzvahs. Even one mitzvah is enough for you to stay away from us. And the proof is from the eagle, because the eagle has no kosher signs. When the Jews have absolutely no merit, no mitzvahs to them, go ahead and have your way with us. But as long as the Jew has one mitzvah to them, not like the eagle that doesn't have, then you have to stay away. So he sent him an eagle to say, Esav, you can be an Esav. If you see a nest, like we're the eagle with no kosher signs to us, not one even mitzvah. Does that make sense now to you?
A bit more.
A bit more? Just only a bit?
Yeah, I need to.
It's a Drake-uppy thing. That's why men learn Gemara and we like other things to learn.
What are the 4 signs?
I knew someone was going to ask. Ask your local Orthodox rabbi, not me. Okay. Very good. I knew someone was going to ask. And if I had time, I would have looked it up just to appear smart. Like, oh, I even know that. But no, like I look things up and I didn't have time. So, okay. So there you go. Okay. Okay. So in Chulin, so I think I explained it. From the eagle, we see that no, an eagle for sure is treif. It has not even one of the signs. But should you see a bird that with one sign it's enough? Okay. So the proof from the eagle is that even one kosher sign is enough to consider it. I mean, so here we learn that even if one mitzvah alone is enough for Esav to not be distressed over the taking of the bracha, and we're still in the paradigm of Esav having to serve Yaakov, and he doesn't do with us what he would really like to do with us. And furthermore, and what Yaakov Avinu, that I toiled very much to keep all of the 603 mitzvah and to do them. Hey, how are you? Welcome. A mitzvah mina muvchar, and I did them perfectly. But that's just for the extra protection that it should mean for the Jewish people in the future, that if they should do any of the mitzvahs, I did all of the mitzvahs in their perfect way, in this perfection, which makes it the ability for the Jewish people to keep any one of those mitzvahs in its perfect way. It's a schus that's going to protect them. But it doesn't mean that they have to be holding on that on that standard of having to keep all of them. You follow? Any questions? Please unmute if you have a question or interesting comment to make or anything. No? So we're going to move along to section 19. Okay. What's your name? Ahuva. Did I ever see you? You look familiar, kind of, sort of. Okay, good. Okay. Us ladies with all the different head coverings, we look different from time to time. Okay. And now to continue. Subsection 19. This is a fascinating chapter here. It's quoting again Minchas Yehuda. The whole concept of this whole discussion of it's only one mitzvah done perfectly in bishleimut, enough to be the thing that's considered tshuva, that's going to be the condition for which Geula comes. He's bringing him again, and he brings the pasuk from Hosea that we saw before. Uvikshu et Hashem Elokeichem. Remember the pasuk from Hosea? I'm trying to find it here. Which section was it in? That the Am Yisrael had to seek out three things. First, they had to come into the land of Israel. Then they had to, according to a pasuk from Hosea, they had to yearn for Malchus Shamayim, the kingship of Hashem, Malchus Beis David, the kingship of David HaMelech, waiting for Mashiach, and the Beis HaMikdash. Okay. And so these words come from that pasuk. Uvikshu et Hashem Elokeichem, and they will seek out Hashem. She'amar Hanavi, that the Navi said. Ein mashma bakasha betfilah levad. It doesn't mean bakasha here, vikshu et Hashem, that it refers to just davening. When you ask for something, it doesn't mean that the only hishtadlus of the asking is I mouthed it. I mouthed the request. That's not enough. Shikru lanu bedor lashuv el achuzatenu. No, bakasha betfilah levad. But he says, so what are you supposed to do? What's the other hishtadlus aside from prayer that you have to accompany the prayer with? What's the doing with the prayer that we have to do? That we actually have to involve the governments of the world, the nations of the world, the rulers of the nations of the world. And then it's like what Herzl did. He started going around like a madman all over Europe and speaking to all of the different rulers to get them to agree to it, to support his idea. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will put it in their hearts to want us to return to our possession and their inheritance of our fathers. Where does he get this from? That returning to the land of Israel, according to Hosea, that because we are, remember the whole pasuk? Because we were mo'es, because we were moved away from, we disgraced those three ideals of Malchus Shamayim and Malchus Beis David and yearning for the Beis HaMikdash, and we're not seeking Hashem in those ways of manifestation here. It's because we forgot that we didn't yearn for them, that we lost the land, and so the tikkun is only when we again start yearning for those things that's going to bring us back. And the Vikshut Hashem here he's adding another component that yes, you have to daven, but not only, and you have to also, the accompanying hishtadlus is to seek and wait for the acceptance of the governments of the world to support the idea of the Jews returning to the land. In another chapter, I don't remember if we did it or it's yet to come, he says, why do the Goyim have to be involved with our return, and why do they have to be involved with the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash? Well, because the the Shefa Eloki, the bounty of Hashem, the godliness that's going to be released into the world, revealed and manifested in the world in the time of Mashiach and the building of Beis Hamikdash, will affect the Goyim too. And since they're the ones who destroyed the temple, it only makes sense that they have to be part of the tikkun, because the peace on earth is also for them. It's not just us. But here he's not saying that. I just kind of stuck that in. But he's saying, so okay, so it's the goyim that have to be involved in agreeing that we should come back and take possession of the land. ואין מראים סימן טוב לישראל עד שיבקשו ויפתחו פתח כחודו של מחט והקדוש ברוך הוא יפתח כפתחו של אולם. And the Jews will not see a good sign over the effort of coming back to Eretz Yisrael until we will do that little bit of hishtadlus, of praying accompanied with, we're waiting to see if the goyim are going to actually be okay with us coming back. And then once that happens, and Hashem will like open up, like an opening of a needle to like a whole mazulam, a hall, a big hallway. And so too, this is how what was promised in the Torah in Sefer Devarim. And you should. It's a pasuk that when we will be off the land, when we will be not in our land anymore, we'll be in Galus. From that place, we have to seek Hashem, and from there we will find the way to come back. From over there, you will seek Hashem and you will find. Now, for those people who say, I'm not coming until Mashiach comes, I can still be wherever I am in the world, this is clearly not what Bereishis Rabbah says, that the coming of Mashiach, that one of Mashiach's job is not to be mekabetz galuyot. It's not to be the ingathering of the nations, of the Jews from the nations. That we have to do on our own. That will precede Mashiach time, the ingather of the nations. What we see in Israel now, that there's hardly any country on the globe that Jews were there that they don't have some sort of representative from that country here in Israel. There's a Jew from almost everywhere on the globe that's now living in Israel. That's kibbutz galuyot, and we don't have Mashiach, and that's like a fulfillment of what the Bereishis Rabbah says. One of Mashiach's job is not to gather us. We don't wait for Mashiach to bring us back. That's something that we do before Mashiach. And so whose job is it? If it's not Mashiach's job, who does? Who will awaken the hearts of the Jews in Galus to come back to Israel? Ki Hashem mezareh Yisrael ekabtzenu. It's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. Hashem scattered Israel, and Hashem will be the one who gathers us. It's Hashem. Ke'omro v'nasa nes lagoyim v'asaf nitchei Yisrael in Yeshayahu. Nasa nes lagoyim. I will raise a banner for the nations to assemble the outcasts of Israel. V'asaf nidchei Yisrael. Somehow there's going to be awakening. There's going to be an awakening of the hearts of the Jews to want to come back. But there's also going to be an accompanying awakening of the goyim that are going to go along with the desire of the Jews to come back. And the awakening in the hearts of the Jews and in the awakening of the hearts of the goyim, who's orchestrating that? The one above. It's an arousal from above. Something happens, and it's like it's time to deal with the Jews. And it's going to be on their agenda to speak about and to be concerned with. And further, more than that, in Yeshayahu, he says, "V'havio et kol acheichem mikol hagoyim mincha Hashem," and they will bring all our brethren from all of the nations an offering to Hashem. It's not only that the goyim are going to be helping us, but they're also going to be assisting us in a nice way. the opening for that is going to be like, and what's the example of that historically, Tanakh wise? Koresh did it. Koresh, okay? And after the Purim story, right before the right okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted on the screen here. Before the second temple, to bring back the Jews to the land of Israel. And Hashem will make all of this unfold in a natural way, how natural things go. It's not going to be miraculous. People wait for miracles. He already said this many times. We missed the boat for the miraculous way of doing things. We don't have enough schusim to do it in a miraculous way. We need to look like a different nation. We have to have so much Ahavat Yisrael and Ahavat Chinam and Ahavat Torah and complete vekas with Hashem. We have to be complete tzaddikim gemurim for the miracle to happen. We're not there. But there's other ways of Hashem bringing us. If it's not going to happen in a miraculous way, in a like chick-chock way, miraculously, then it's going to happen unfolding naturally, how things unfold naturally in nature, and that takes time. And that's the be'ita, as opposed to the achishena. Okay, where are we now? I lost my place here. And so, okay. So it's going to be according to how things are unfolding in the times, in the way of derech eretz. And what is this way of derech eretz? What is the natural way of going about a nation taking up a territory? She's just, I guess, needs a cough. Okay. Oh, yeah.
There's nothing that you said.
No, of course not. And what would be the natural, peaceful way of a nation that's scattered all over the world to gather again in one territory called the land of Israel without making a war? Because it has to be a peaceful way. We're not allowed to take Eretz Yisrael by force. It's one of the shvuot, that's one of the promises. It has to be with the agreement of the nations of the world. It has to be in a peaceful way. That's Torah, okay? I keep losing my spot here. Keep losing my spot. And so the derech eretz way is to actually ask for grace, for mercy. You ask, you negotiate, you ask for, like the Hebrew word is chanina. Chanina in English is amnesty, but it means in a peaceful way, in a gracious way. Me'et malchei eretz, from the rulers of the lands. And so that's why this is hinted at by Yaakov Avinu, how he came back to Eretz Yisrael when he came back from exile. Because Maseh Avot Siman Banim, everything that happened to the Yaakov Avinu studying his life is a siman for how things are going to need to unfold for us. There's a parallel, but how everything that happened to Yaakov Avinu, and this is a siman for Amisha. And so we learn about Yaakov Avinu's return to the land, how it has to happen for us also. So how was it when he came back to the land of Israel after he dealt with the whole Esav business? What does it say? Vayichan et pnei ha'ir. He encamped, Yaakov Avinu encamped. Vayichan et pnei ha'ir, in the face of the city of the important people of the city. He addressed before he came, or as he was coming, he encamped outside and he asked permission to be received, to be accepted. He was waiting for the communication. Vayichan means to camp, but yichan also means something else from chen, from asking for grace. Amru Chazal in Bereshit Rabbah vayichan pnei ha'ir. What does it mean vayichan pnei ha'ir? Not that he just encamped, but as he was encamped, he asked for mercy. He asked for chanina. Chanan et hapanim sheba'ir. He approached respectfully the rulers of that place. Amru Chazal. By the way, he's talking about Shechem here, I believe. Yeah, Lamed Gimel. That's about Dina here. Amru Chazal b'Bereshit Rabbah v'yichan et pnei ha'ir. He asked He asked for grace from the leaders of the community there. And he started by sending them all kinds of gifts. וכן כתב הרד"ק בתהילים, בבן אדם שאין לו תשועה. Do not, רד"ק on Tehillim, okay, a pasuk from Kuf Mem Vav Gimel. Do not put your trust for salvation in man because he will always disappoint you. Who must we put our trust in for our salvation? The one above. Ki l'Hashem levado teshua, because the teshua, the salvation, only comes from Hashem. V'hu yisuvavenu al yedei adam. But how does Hashem work? How does the Yeshua of Hashem work? We don't see Hashem working in nature except through shlichim. Who are the shlichim of Hashem for this? Bnei Adam. So when you see a person doing you a favor, don't be confused. It's the person who's just a shaliach of Hashem doing you the favor. That's how Hashem is showing up. Just like Hashem brought about the coming out of Galus after the destruction of the first temple, before the second temple, through Koresh. And so too la'atid, and so too in the future, the Gula of Yisrael will be through the kings of the rulers of the Goyim. That Hashem will inspire them, inspire their spirit to say, you know what? You can go back to your lands now. And they won't see it as treason, they won't see it as anything other than, it's okay, it's your homeland. We give you permission, like we saw in the Balfour Declaration. Okay, he's bringing other proof texts. He's bringing so many psukim here. Prescribe to Hashem. It's a pasuk from Shir Shirim which speaks to the goyim of the nations. Ascribe to Hashem the nations of the world. Ascribe to Hashem honor and strength. Don't think that any strength that you have is just because you're smart and strong and survival of the fittest or whatever ideology you're holding by. It's any power that any ruler has, it's ordained by Hashem. And so give honor to Hashem that gave you this strength. So that when you allow the Jewish people to come back to the land of Israel, make sure you don't do it in a disgraceful way. You do it in an honorable way. You do it b'kavod va'oz. You do it with honor and with strength. But strength of understanding that you're shlichim, you're messengers of Hashem. And what a great privilege is that, to assist the people of Hashem, and how many blessings will come to you if you do that. וכן כתב אברבנאל במשמיע ישועה, ולפי שציון תתפלל שיבת בניה לתוכה. לכן אמר הנביא, הנה הדבר הזה יהיה בכוח גבורתי, ועל ידי הגויים עצמם יהיה הנס הזה. So he's bringing, okay, a Abarbanel that says when the Jewish people will come back to Zion, it'll be such a pele. Zion will be in such wonder that her children are coming back into her. And so, therefore, the Navi says, the koach gvurati, that it's with the gvura of Hashem, through the goyim themselves, that the miracle will be unfolding. The miracle of what? The miracle of the Jewish people coming back to their land. Why is he making a big point of this? Because there are people saying, we have no obligation to leave as long as Mashiach is not here. And so he's saying, but that's not how it works. That's not what the sources are saying. The sources are saying, first of all, you have to want it. You have to have an awakening for it. When you feel the awakening for it, that's from a miraculous thing altogether from Hashem, that hearts of Jews are awakening to come back to Israel. But accompanying that is also the readiness of the goyim to allow us. And we saw I keep referring to the history of early Zionism, late 1800s, early 1900s, that the Turks had no problems with Jews buying land, no problem. And then when the British Empire took over from the Ottoman Empire, they had no problem saying that the Jewish people have rights to their homeland. We can come back, and they were going to assist us. It's like they gave their bracha to it. And then that's 1917. 1920, there was the San Remo conference, the League of Nations, which is the precursor to United Nations. There's a whole conference in San Remo in Italy that majority of the nations that gathered there, representatives, agreed to what was written in the Balfour Declarations 3 after it was written. More, it wasn't just the British that were saying it. And so this is a clear sign of the unfolding of the nevuot, of the prophecies, that's how it has to come down. And it was open, so it was gracious. The land was open. It was like a wreck here. It was swamps and all kinds of diseases and malaria and cholera, and it wasn't uninhabitable. But the Jews said, it's okay, we'll clean it up. The Goyim didn't know what to do with it for thousands of years. It lay to waste here. The Jews come and they know how to bring it back to life. All of this is unfolding, is a clear sign that it's an awakening from above, and that's how we are going to come back to the land of Israel. That seems like it's a very natural way, a derech eretz way, a way of the world way of coming back, not in a miraculous way. And who's to say that it needs to be miraculous? Because the psukim say the alternative to missing the boat with a miraculous way is this very slow, way of doing things. Like governments have to agree, and then we have to, pack our bags, and it's not eagle wings that are going to bring us. We have to pack and go in boats and go on donkeys or whatever. Actually, I say donkey for real because my great grandfather came from Turkey to Eretz Yisrael on a donkey. And he had my great aunt and great uncle in the saddle, in the pockets of the donkey, because they were still small children. My grandmother, she was the older of the siblings. She was already married at 15, so she was still in Turkey. She came back later. I knew this great grandfather of mine. He lived till 105. Alav Shalom. Okay, good times. In it, whichever way, whatever it is. Okay, here we go. And now we're continuing. Where was I? He's bringing so many psukim that if you didn't live through the history that we have now, the perspective of in the past 150 years since the Jews really started making Aliyot Eretz Yisrael, we don't understand what these psukim are talking about. But here Yeshaya was saying, and the kings will be your nurturers, and the queens will be your wet nurses. What's Yeshaya talking about? And it's all about coming back to Shivat Zion. What does it mean the kings will be our nurturers, and the Omanecha and the queens will be our wet nurses? What is he talking about? That is to say, just like in the Geula from Mitzrayim, God commanded Moshe, carry this people in your bosom as a nurse carries a suckling babe. So too, in the final Geula, kings will be your nurturers, like Moshe Rabbeinu was our nurturer, lehavdil, but they will assist. They won't put up the blocking, like at a certain, we're block, and at a certain point, all of a sudden, the obstacles won't be there anymore from the mitzad the goyim, from the side of the goyim. Like in Geulat Mitzrayim, that the traveling through the desert was according to Hashem, al pi Hashem Yisau, Vayi bin Saron Moshe, right? Like when it's Hashem that decided when we're going to travel and when we're going to camp. So too the wilderness of our exilic experience, everything that happens to us, whether we're in Israel or not Israel, is al pi Hashem. So too, in the final Geula, we will be traveling al pi Hashem, according to the word of Hashem, beyad malchei haaretz, with the hands through the assistance of the rulers of the land. where their headspace will be in terms of the Jews. Means like, and Yeshayahu says it's like it's plural, and the kings will be your nurturers and the queens will be your wet nurses. Like it'll be like a consensus of the kings and the queens, the rulers of the lands. It'll be a consensus that they will agree to allow the Jews to come back to Eretz Yisrael. And they will understand it. You know what? It's time to give the rightful owners of the crown back to the owners of the crown. Eretz Yisrael for the Am Yisrael. Now, like 200 years ago, 300 years ago, you would envision a United Nations. It's not now, like it's just a farce, okay, but like all of these conferences and all of the resolutions to allow with a majority vote to allow the Jewish people a peaceful coming back to the land of Israel. It wasn't peaceful because the Arabs here started a war. But in terms of the nations of the world, go. It would have been such a fantasy. Like, that's going to happen? Yeah, right. After all the inquisitions and pogroms and the Holocaust that we went through throughout the exile. How is that ever going to happen? And yet it happened. And all of a sudden we understand Yeshayahu. It's exactly what they were saying. Now here, the final 3 paragraphs of this subsection is fascinating. It's a pasuk from Yecheskel. Veheveti etchem el midbar hamim, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the nations. Midbar is a wilderness, is a desert. I will bring you to the wilderness of the nations. But midbar, without nikudot, you could read the word medaber. Medaber as in people who speak. Lashon dibur, speech. Ein midbar ela dibur. That desert, wilderness, shares the same letters as dibur, which means they have a relationship to it. What does it mean to read the word of Yecheskel, Ve'eveti etchem el midbar hamim, in this way? And I will bring you into the wilderness of the nations. Don't read midbar, wilderness, but rather medaber. And I will bring you into the speech of the nations. I will make you a topic that they will speak about. All of a sudden, the world will be preoccupied with the Jews. All of a sudden, all the attention, all they'll ever want to talk about is what's with the Jews. And we wonder, why are we so much in their preoccupation? Don't they have nothing better to do in their time than caring about what the Jews are doing or not doing? That everything that we do is looked under a microscope for them, and they have something to say about it. And it's a pasuk in Yecheskel, a sign of the Geula, as when we will be on the lips of the agenda of the nations of the world to be preoccupied with what are the Jews doing? What are we going to do with the Jews? There's a Jewish issue. There's a Jewish problem. What are we going to do about it? Now, this didn't exist. This phenomena didn't exist before the 1700s. No, before the mid 1800s. Not even. Not even. When did the world? It began in the late 1800s, early 1900s. What are we going to do with the Jews? Not in terms of killing us. That they always had like the thing, but like let's try to solve. Like let's talk about this Jewish problem that we need to solve. They'll look at it in that way. Some for the good and some for the bad. But will be on their agenda. So let's look at this. I will bring you into the speech of nations. That they themselves will be speaking about the length of our exile. And now he's going to be quoting a high priest in Hungary called Primus, Yarum Hodo, okay, His Highness. And he opened up and he opened up. His mouth was wisdom. Rav Techel is a Hungarian, and I guess this was like well known to him. Anyone living at that time, and he said this high priest, this non-Jew Catholic, and he addressed the kings and the ministers of Hungary, and he said this: "Lo shamanu v'lo ha'inu sheyeh chavush beveit hasurim 18 me'ot shana." We never heard of a prisoner held captive in prison for 1800 years. As these poor Jews, ha'umlalim, as umlal. I don't know, you have the English there. These poor Jews, woeful and oppressed, have had to suffer under the hands of kings and ministers. Whoever heard of holding a people captive for 1800 years? That we don't give them freedom of movement, freedom of economy, freedom of, we always have to, right? And especially since I don't see anything like so bad in their behavior that they merit to still having to be under these conditions of subjugation, being subjugated to the rule, like as if held in captive. So now there's a footnote. There's a footnote that says, and so we see that this is the beginning. With this high priest, why is he bringing him here? Is that it's a shift in the view of the Jew. Why is this happening to the Jews? Why are they held captive? Why are they like, can't they just have some other type of existence other than what we've been giving them up until now? And they're starting to creatively think out of their box of usual ways of thinking concerning the Jews, of what else can we offer to the Jews? What else can happen to the Jews? Is there no other way of dealing with the Jews other than what we have been dealing, how we have been dealing with them? And that's what Rav Techel is saying when Yeshayahu speaks, the kings will be your nurturers and the queens will be your wet nurses. That at a certain point, the headspace, the viewing of the Jew from the rulers of the world would be a different way of solving the problem of the Jews amongst them. As again, another pasuk, he says, "Vayanakta chalav goyim v'shad melachim tinki," and you will nurse the milk of the nations, of the breast milk of the nations, and from the breast of kings. How did they understand that in Yeshayahu's times? Like, what is he saying? What kind of a hallucination is this nevuah coming from? You know, the prophets are very spiritual people, but you know, who knows? Maybe like he went off a little bit too much on this hallucination. But we who lived through this, we understand that there's a relationship between the Goyim and the Jewish people, and it doesn't have to be one of animosity. It can be like a nice unfolding of history amongst us to bring us to the Geula. And at a certain point, they themselves will be part of that spiritual plan, in that there will be rulers of the nations themselves that will start thinking creatively in a nicer way of how to handle the Jews. And ask the questions, do they really deserve this treatment that we have been dishing out to them all of these centuries? Apaim Eretz ishtachulach, and then Yeshayahu says, and they will bow down to the ground at your feet. This we have yet to see. These nevuot that he's going to quote now. Bezrat Hashem, it's going to be exciting because we're going to see it. Because Hashem will do things according to the natural unfolding of how history unfolds. Everything will unfold according to the political way of unfolding things. And they will lick up the dust from the dust of the earth that's beneath our feet. That's That means that mehagoim yelavu el Hashem. That means that there will be goyim, good, righteous of the Gentiles, that will support the Jewish people coming back to the land. And they will accompany the Jews coming back to the land, and they will do business with them in a nice way. What's the English to that? A beloved and camaraderie and companionship. And when that will happen, you will know that I am God, and for all those who waited for me, all those who hope in me, all those who understood that these nevuah, that these prophecies will yet to unfold. And then what will happen, when they will unfold, you will see, I knew it. I knew it. That's why I stayed loyal to the prophecies, because I knew they were going to unfold. Ahuvi, and then he finishes off. It's so beautiful. Ahuvi hakoreh, the beloved reader of my words. He is imploring us to have these words enter our heart. Look at this and contemplate in your and think about it, about all of these things that I brought up till now. From this Sephardi rabbi, from this Minchat Yehuda, from the Sefer that I quoted, that was a big tzaddik and the Talmud of a great tzaddik of the perpetuates. And who doesn't know of the perpetuates? Shinit Kabed, that whose books have been accepted all through the diaspora. Ashkenazim learn them, Sephardi, everyone learns them. And then he sees, and he brought in his book that brought also from other Gdolim, from this Yefei Torah that was great from the one of the giants of the Rishonim, that the return to our land will be b'derech eretz, in a natural, political, natural unfolding way. Not a miraculous way that Mashiach will come and boom, it's going to be miraculous, and our homes and everything will grow wings and will fly through the air and end up here. That it will be b'derech eretz, in the way of the land, b'derech hateva, in the natural way, according to the political ways of how things happen in the world. That all of a sudden the nations of the world will wake up to, there's a Jewish problem amongst us. They will speak about it as a problem that has to be solved, but not by killing us. Although some of them will have the idea of killing us, and that was Hitler and Mashmo's idea. And we have a modern day one in Gaza right now. But there will be other people that will not have that will say, we got to think of a creative way. It's not natural for how the Jews are living. Can we get together and talk? Midbar, Amim, will be medaber. Let's discuss. Let's get together as nations of the world and discuss what should be done with the Jews. And this happened. This understanding of the psukim was addressed by this chachamim in a time of the world that no governing bodies of law of any nation had this as their agenda. Nobody knew to think about or thought about the Jews in this way. It was the church that governed the lands of Europe, and the church had their own agenda for keeping the Jews suppressed, to prove that now they have replaced the Jews in the eyes of Hashem. They are the real flower of Israel, not the Jews. Jews rejected them, and so we were on there in their mind, but for their own ascendancy. But all of a sudden there'll be a shift that they'll start thinking about the Jews, not in how to keep them low so we can make ourselves look better or kill them because we hate them, but like, no, let's really get together and discuss it as nations to solve the Yudin problem. Habaya Yudit. But when this parish was written, there was no Jewish problem to speak of. Nobody spoke about it. And now, Rav Tarta says, when we got to this time period, that really the Jews have become the question of the world. There's no nation in the time of the Holocaust that didn't speak about what's with the Jews. Are we going to allow the Jews to come in, or we're not going to allow the Jews to come? What should we do? There's the United Nations also already there. There's not one nation that didn't speak about the Jews. How can you just skim over that fact without paying attention to what's going on? And then he says, and so by necessity, if you have any brains in your head, literally he says that, if you have any brain in your head, you have to acknowledge that now is the time, the tkufa, the time period that the Nevuim spoke about. Shehigia et kudatenu, that when we will be in the mouths of nations of the world, coming together to discuss what are we going to do with the Jews, like San Remo conference, that this is an unfolding of a nevuah, and it's the beginning that's going to cause to the eventual coming back of all the Jews to Israel, and wake up, Jews, and come back and answer the call, because clearly this is an invitation from above to come back to Israel. And that's the end of this subsection. So now you can unmute yourself, or anyone around the table, if you have any comments or questions. You're all speechless. It's
how the thunder came.
The thunder. It's just fabulous how he just brings source after source. Every page has like at least 10 sources to support us being here, as the awakening that it's not just a few Meshuggah Jews that had this treif idea of coming back to Israel. It's not the religious ones, it's the non-religious ones. Now all of this is Hashem. It's all of it is Hashem. And if you read the Nevuot and you see what's going on, you got to not have a brain in your head to not see what's unfolding before us. Bezat Hashem will know what to do with the gift. Now that we are here, we should fill all of this holy space that we're in, occupying it with Torah and mitzvahs, so that the real Shefa, the beginning, is coming here in body. The body, like in the Nevuah of Yecheskel, with the dry bones, it's the body that gets reconstructed. And it's only after the body gets reconstructed with all the bones, then Hashem throws into it the spirit of the neshama. And so we're waiting for that also. And we're there's a lot of Torah now, so it's happening. But it's got to reach more in Bezat Hashem. Diane, you want to say something? You have to unmute yourself. You don't know how? I will unmute you. Hold on. Let me see if I can unmute you. I can't see you. Hold on. Participants, hold on. Oh, I see you now, and I'm going to unmute you. Hold on. Diane, you asked to unmute. I think I asked you to. You have to do it. It says that at the bottom left. At the bottom left, you have an unmute button. I can't unmute. It looks like a microphone with a line through it. I still don't hear you though. You want to write in the chat? You know how to write in the chat? I don't read lips, otherwise I would tell you to maybe mouth it very slowly. No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining. You're still trying to figure it out?
Oh,
Okay, no, somebody else.
so they cannot.
Yeah, of course they can read. Okay, cool too. Bye-bye.
Bye.